Hi, everybody. It's Marianne Cashman with William Ravis Real Estate in the Source of the Source. And I am so happy and excited to have a woman with me today, someone that I admire greatly. And for those of you that recognize her, I know you do as well. This is Jennessa Durrani, CEO of Celebrate Studio Inc., who does just about everything. It does it all incredibly well. So I am so happy to have you with me today, Jennessa. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
This is great. And
Love to talk.
I know, exactly. I've got my tea. Did you bring anything with you
Oh,
today?
I drink a redonkulous amount of tea in any given day. So it's never far from
Me
my
too. Me
hand.
too. I know. I think Dunkin' Donuts should actually send me just a drop shipment of my green tea. I'll be happy with that.
Exactly.
So Jennessa, again, as I mentioned, I have been following you for quite a while. And if you noticed my new YouTube channel, The Source of the Source, the goal of that is to help promote local businesses because I'm a big believer, as you know, in supporting one another. And I wanted to have you come on because you do so much. And I want to go back to something a year ago. And I remember at the very beginning of this pandemic, I remember you jumped in and you volunteered your time to do a kids program, right?
Yep. It was 1 year ago today.
Was it really? Oh my
1 year ago today, we started. I had been doing after school at South, where I have now a fifth grader. We have been doing a cartooning club after school as part of like their champion club and so forth. He wanted to have a bunch of kids at our house, and I was like, how about we do it at school? Yeah. So I've been doing this for a few years. So last year, when everything shut down, everyone is going out of their minds. I decided like, oh, let's just take cartooning club. Instead of 6 weeks, let's do 5 days in a row. And that all the parents have 1 hour to themselves. Give me your children. And I promoted it from 5 to 105. And we got over 100 families signed up.
That was from the bottom of my heart. I've said this to you, I think, in an email, but just thank you so much for doing that. Because it was such a gift. It was, we were all grasping at that time for a little bit of normalcy. And to any time anybody takes care of children and does something for another person, I just think that's wonderful. So I just thank you again for doing that. But that really also just gave me a lot of insight into who you are as an individual. And maybe pay a little more attention to you and what you do. And you've continued to amaze me. So that's why I want to have you today. So why don't you give us a little background, if you don't mind, in regards to who you are, who your family is, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. So I live in Andover with my husband and 2 kids. I have a freshman in high school and a 5th grader. And currently in separate cohorts, but and so life in isolation. And we have lived in Andover for 19 years, and I have lived in Massachusetts since '94. But before that, I am from the Midwest originally, so I'm an Iowa girl. So I'm from Iowa in the very northwest corner, so about an hour from Minnesota, Nebraska, and South Dakota. So way up in the corner. And so even though I have now lived in Massachusetts longer than I ever lived in Iowa, like I say, you can take the girl out of Iowa, but you can't take the Iowa out of the girl. So I grew up in a town of 1,700 people. Yeah. I was always that girl that was, the weird one that didn't quite fit in, and I kind of knew it. And so I had high aspirations for moving to the city. And when I was 10, I decided I was going to be an interior designer, and I was going to move to the city.
10.
10.
Okay.
How it's still kind of I have how I came to be, but it's not normal that a 10-year-old in a town of 1,700 would even know what an interior designer is in 1981. And so I did everything. In high school, I was on the track to go to design school. I went to design school. I graduated, and then I manifested the crap out of the situation to find myself in Massachusetts. And I then, in 1994, joined a design firm in Boston and fulfilled my dream and everything I ever wanted, right? So, and then there I was. And so I then the next step was going to move to New York City, and I had all my plans and we were all set, yada, yada, yada. Met my husband,
Ah,
did not go to New York City, still stayed and continued my design career. But 10 years in, I was like, this was my dream, but now I'm kind of done with this.
yeah.
Don't really like this anymore, and so forth. So I then, right after we got married, left with this idea that I was going to help people be more creative in their lives. And I started my business 20 years ago this February. So
Wow.
I just celebrated 20 years in business. And in
Congratulations.
that time, thank you. And in that time, it started with me like, so you need baby invitation, like baby shower invitations. Like I was doing anything creative. There isn't really anything that I can't make or I can't create.
But
Like
you keep it good.
that's my gift. So I wanted to use it for other people who
Yeah.
have an idea but don't know how to bring it to fruition. And so I kind of followed the money. Like what were people wanting and needing and so forth. And that led me into events. So I started with um, milestone events, birthdays, weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and so forth. And then I had kids, and I was like, I don't want to work all of my nights and weekends. And so I then transitioned into corporate and nonprofit events. And no one cries at corporate events. It's just it's a lot less stressful and so forth. So, and then, um, and then my mother had suffered from lupus her whole life and lost her battle in 2012.
I'm
And
so
at
sorry.
that time, she had her own. She was kind of my she left a legacy to me of always reinventing herself. Like she was like me in a town of 1700 that didn't leave and always like, oh, I don't like those job opportunities. I'm going to make it for myself. So she was a business owner her whole life. And so she had owned a bed and breakfast and then a catering company. And we authored and self-published 4 cookbooks. And so when she died, I started a blog to keep her legacy alive and keep all of her recipes going and so forth. And thus that put me on the trajectory I am now, which is I realized that I'm really not a food blogger. It's just not
No.
my thing. But I started like blogging about like being a mom and how hard it is and the struggles that we have and the struggles that we have as a working, like for me, a working from home mom, and
Yes.
how juggling all of those things. And that's brought me to my coaching business, which is kind of where I'm at today.
And you do such a great job. But I want to go back to your mom for a moment. And boy, she must be so proud of you, Jennessa. And I love to hear people's stories. That's one thing I love about my job as a realtor. I always listen to what is your goal? What's your story? And when they start talking about their visions or where they grew up and such, but it's nice to hear about your mom. And I love hearing about your growing up and oh my God, all you've accomplished. But I love to, when you talk about your mom, and there's a word that we use quite a bit in work and in personal life, I think, over the last year, and that is pivot. Your mom taught you how to pivot. And if you don't like where you are, change it, which is
Exactly.
so liberating, isn't it?
It is. And
Oh,
it's so,
yeah.
I grew up with 2 sides of the spectrum. I had a mom who was like, started her own business when I was in 2nd grade. That's when and it was just a series of them her whole life. And then I had a father who was in the military and stayed in the same job from the moment he was drafted until the moment he retired. And so it was like the yin and yang of, this kind of stability and kind of, and loyalty and so forth
Yeah.
with you're not a tree, you don't have to stay where you're at. And that's
I know.
kind of, taking the best of both worlds.
That's right. So I bet you got some of your work ethic from both of them, but from your dad too, because before we jumped on here today, I was asking you about how much you sleep because you do so much, Jennessa. You do so much, and so tell us a little bit more about your business. I love the coaching business, but you're an artist. Tell us a little bit more about what your day to day is. And
Absolutely, absolutely. So I really have tried to take all of my strengths or my gifts and try to kind of, as I was saying before, like mission mash them together on how I can, reinvent myself yet once again. So I work with women, mostly working moms
Mhm.
who are of my same age that are at the point of, okay, our kids are getting older.
Yeah.
They're self-sufficient and so forth. And now it's kind of time for us to turn our focus more to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's what I help. I say my job is to hold the mirror and help them find themselves. And so I do that through one-on-one coaching. I do a whole series of workshops. And now I have an online community for women that they can join and kind of go on this journey together in community. So, um, and so yeah, so that is my coaching side.
Yeah.
And then there's the piece, I am an artist, and there is that piece I can't quite give up, and that is, I find this, it's kind of like all those kids that took my cartooning club.
Yeah.
After that, I offered like free for parents classes and so forth. No one, oh, I'm not creative. I can't draw a stick figure. I couldn't draw myself out of a corner. I've heard them all a million times. And the thing is that we reach an age, and I can see this already. I have a kids class, I have a teen class, and I have a college age class right now. And when you leave middle school, you have to choose art.
Mm.
Art is always part of your curriculum all the way through middle school. And then you get into high school, and now you have to be like, oh, you're on the college track. So you need to take chemistry, and you need to take digital video, and you need to take social entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
all great things and things that I didn't have growing up. Like our electives were not as jazzy as they have here in our community. But you reach a point, we all reached a point where we were told it's time to put those are toys. That's time to put that, like the fun stuff aside. Now it's time to be creative. We need to be in kind of career mode. And so we leave that artist child behind and we move on. And I think that is a travesty. And so my job also is to reignite creativity, passion, and purpose from this kind of heart-hand connection with anyone that'll listen to me. And so I weave that into any of my coaching, all of my workshops, any retreat I do, and then also teach classes and do a lot of girls' nights it's seemingly, if as long as there's like hot beverages or beverage of choice, women get together and they're in community, they're more apt to, in community with people they know, they're willing to kind of explore with me. And it's, for all of my work, it is all about the process and not anything about the product. I'm not a paint night person. There's amazing people that do that. That's just not me. I want everyone to walk out of there with something that's unique to them, not something that I created and they're copying. So
Yeah, this is a little bit of a segue here, Jennessa, but hang with me, okay? So I just got a coworker of mine inspired me, and I got a Peloton bike, okay? I've only done 3 rides so far, but the woman that I'm following or doing her rides is motivational. And when you're talking about your classes, right? I mean, this person that leads this ride for me makes me feel like a rock star. You do the same thing. Your energy that you bring to, I think, whatever you do, but I've not done one of your groups for anyone that, full disclosure, but I want to, because I just, I think that any time with you you gotta walk out of there feeling like you're on top of the world. Am I right, Jennessa?
That's my goal. That
Yeah.
is my goal. And that's where just this morning, one of my community members had posted, we do, we have a monthly theme and weekly challenges, and we have a weekly live session. And on the post for the replay from this week's live, one of my community members who actually lives in Canada was like, you challenged me. Like, it was like, I was drawn to you.
Mhm.
I didn't know that I needed this, but I'm so glad I'm here and you challenge me every day. And that just, it gave me goosebumps this morning, and it just gave me
Me
that's my
too.
that's my purpose, is that, I have to be kind of extra
Yes.
for people to I just have to stay 2 steps ahead of everyone else. I struggle just as much as everyone else, but what I try to do is to show everyone, yes, I'm struggling, but this is how I'm getting through it.
Yeah.
And so that I can, my word for this year is shine. Like, I want to be the light to help people see their own way or their way to me. And so that way we can all come together and get to the next place.
I love that word shine. And I also feel that for I think a lot of us, and myself included, this past year has been one to kind of shed these layers of some expectations or some limitations that we've put on ourselves, and just like, why not? Why not? Why are we doing it this way? Why not do it this way? But so I also have to say I'm impressed that this woman that you're talking about is in Canada. That's an important thing for people to know about you, is that, again, obviously, thank goodness for these Zoom calls that we do,
Yeah.
and we're reaching people. You can have people wherever, right?
And that's my goal. My goal is to make this an international community of women. And I'm like, technically, I'm there, but I would like to go beyond North America.
Yeah.
But I do. It's interesting is that we've had Zoom for like, I don't know, years.
Yeah.
But I was still so like in the 6 degrees of separation from who I know. And, and now I feel like in the last year, everyone is so much more comfortable. Like, for coaching even before a pandemic was online or on the phone. Like, there isn't, but now it's like, so I have community members and clients that are in California and in Seattle and Colorado. I don't know how many states right now that we're all in, but it has made it so much easier to get my message further. And I will say social media has definitely helped. And one of the things that has brought a lot of community members to me, and you know this about me, is that I've lost 160 pounds in the last, well, I started in 2018. I've been maintaining for almost 9 months. And
Amazing.
so thus I'm part of a community of women who are also on the same kind of that journey. So I have a lot of clients that I help in accountability on their own weight loss journeys as well.
So can you touch on that for just a second, Jennessa, if you don't mind? Because again,
Certainly.
that's remarkable. How did you do it, and how do you do it?
I know my doctor's like, I've only met 2 people in my entire practice, like in my entire career, that have been able to lose that much weight naturally. Like, I didn't do it through surgery. Not that there's anything wrong with surgery, that's just not the path I took.
Yeah.
So I have battled my weight since, I joke that I came out overweight. Like, I was always um, that roly-poly girl and so forth. And my mom, trying to help me, put me into a weight loss program when I was 11, into an adult weight loss program as an 11-year-old. And that kind of wasn't helpful. But now as a mother, totally get it. And so I battled up and down, had great success at times, but as soon as I would get there, then I would just slide right back. And so every time, so at my heaviest, I weighed 370 pounds. When I was pregnant with my first son, I had to go to the hospital to be weighed because the doctor's office didn't have a scale that would I'd maxed out the scale. So I had reached a point where I had lived this long with this much weight, and I was like, it is what it is. But I had to get out I had a lot of food chatter. There was just so much. And I realized, and I found a program that is for food addicts, which is different. I was always in programs with lovely women who were, um, just eat less. Like, I don't think you understand. Like, there's different people have different minds and so
Mhm.
forth. So I found a program that's called Bright Line Eating that is a food recovery or food addiction recovery model for weight loss. And it was written by a neuroscientist who was also an addict. And so it's all the brain science. So it was like, oh, it's how I'm wired. It
Right.
took all of the shame away.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get my mind clear of all of the crap and so forth. And the weight loss came. So I just went in going for like the freedom. I had been in therapy, trying to like get to this place. And the tenets of the program are no flour, no sugar. You take away anything that is addictive. No
Yes.
flour, no sugar. Um, Eating only 3 times a day, so there's no snacking, and I weigh and measure my food, and 160 pounds. I lost, when I started this program, I mean, at this point, I weighed 325 pounds, and I lost a half of myself. Um, so yeah.
Jennessa, that is so, so impressive. And impressive is such an understatement. And I'm a little embarrassed. I don't have a stronger word for that. But thank you for sharing so much of your personal journey too. I think, again, like I said before, this past year has encouraged a lot of us to shed any kind of layers and just be open about who we are, because we are all so different. My favorite phrase in my household is nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I don't want to be perfect. I'm never, that's a waste of energy trying to think we're perfect. We're not. We're learning. We should be learning and growing every day.
Well, and what I say to if you ask my students,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what age, I have 2 sayings and they can rattle them off. Perfect is boring.
I see it.
Perfect is boring. Like, who wants, I always say, like, at the holidays and you see all the people's lights and they're like
What?
perfectly, I'm like, that's boring. It's the ones that have like, you see, like they just flung the lights on the trees. I'm like, those are my people.
Those are my
Those are my people. And then you do you. And I think that's where, that's one of the things that we talked about in the community this weekend, which is now as things are moving forward, right? Like,
Yeah.
and things are, going to, at whatever time, we are going to be able to go out in the world again and so
Yeah.
forth. And we have been very lucky.
Mhm.
It's how you want to hold the perspective. But we were able to shut everything off and then say all the things that we could never say no to.
Right.
The pandemic said no to them for us. And
Yeah.
so then it was all done. And then we're like, oh, I don't have to get my hair colored every 7 weeks.
Right.
And now I do not.
Yeah.
But it's like,
You're
I
beautiful.
don't have to do all of these things, right? Like nothing bad happened and
Right.
so forth. But now as things open up, we don't have that. We're not going to have that as our excuse. So now we have to really be conscious and intentional about what we let back
That's
into our
right.
lives, because we could just go right back to the crazy hamster wheel that we had at the beginning
Yeah.
of it all.
And I don't want to. I was talking to just somebody the other day about that. I said, I actually I was bringing my daughter back from dance class last night. So I was talking to herself and a classmate of hers about how there's a lot of positives, I think, in this last year. And one of them is being able to stay home and take a piano lesson over FaceTime or Zoom. And some of that running around, a lot of that running around, right, that we used to
Oh,
do, that we're not doing. The quality of like time with our loved ones, and even time to be able to do what we're doing today, Jennessa, right?
yeah.
A year ago, there's no way a year and a half ago, I could have done this, So I'm really cognizant, like you said, or of like what I want to put back in my life. And I do say to myself when I say that, I hope I always am, because I think there's that threat of kind of getting back into the new normal and just kind of keeping up with everybody. And there's a lot of things over this last year that I hope to keep in there.
Yeah.
Um, so Jennessa, like when I want to mention, we're not done by any means, but I would like to make sure that people know how to reach you. Okay. So I just want to say right now that I will ask you to send me a link and information so people can contact you and learn more about you. But if you look ahead, so, and I have to also just for one quick second, give a shout out to a woman that I was blessed to know as a neighbor years ago. Her name was Joanne Eccles. And I remember learning from Joanne that she became a midwife at age 50. And at the time, I was about 45, 46 or so years old. And I was so impressed that she did that. So, and I just mentioned her because she's been an influence in my life. But what you're talking about too, Jennessa, I'm so impressed with how many times you have, morphed into something else. And I think that that's so refreshing. And I want to instill that in my children. I bet you want to instill it in yours too. So tell me about you in the future. Tell me about, I know you're coaching and artist. Is there a goal that you can think about, or, what do you want to do for the short term and long term?
Absolutely. So I I joke that I married an old husband, and so he is older than I am, and so he's closer to retirement than I am. So I'm going to have the luck or the luxury of retiring early,
Yeah.
and so that has been part of this newest shift for me, is that
Mhm.
I want to be able to help as many women as possible from anywhere, anytime,
Yeah.
without tied to location. And that's really kind of the impetus for creating the community that I have, and to doing the coaching that I'm doing, and even teaching in the way that I'm teaching, which is all virtual,
Mhm.
is so that I can continue in that vein. And when my fifth grader is now in college,
Mhm.
I don't have to be any specific place. And so that's really trying to build my business in a way that it is kind of a well-oiled machine, that
Right.
I can then do the work,
Yeah.
and and when I say do the work, it is kind of like my work in the world, not like
Right.
my work that is on a timesheet. And
Right.
that's
Right.
where um, I have, that was part of this year as well, is that, I'm talking to a lot of women that's like, oh, it was such a grind before. I was working such a grind. And that's what they have found in the last year, is like, I don't have to work so hard. I joke it's like the Seinfeld episode, which I have a Seinfeld reference for like every single thing. But the Seinfeld episode where George is like always looks angry, because then it's like everyone thinks he's busy. If he
Yeah.
just looks angry, he's like busy. And it's like this thought, like, you know, our usefulness. And I think this is us just growing up with the parents that we had. Like, you didn't sit down, you had to keep going. I grew up in a farm mentality. I grew up with women that vacuumed after every meal. I like that nothing is done until it's all done, and we do not sit down until all the work is done. And by then we just collapse into bed, and then we start all over again.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so there is this feeling like we had to be busy. Busy is productive, productive is
Mhm.
worthy, and so forth. And that's where it's like, I want to do work that like
Yeah.
isn't a grind, and
Right.
help. And my work in the world is helping women realize that
That's
they have that same
right. Yeah.
opportunity.
And I have to say, Jennessa, talking to you and seeing you and watching you, again, I've said this over and over again, and will continue, you have such great energy. It does not appear that anything that you do in life is a grind. You seem to have fun and enjoy everything you do. And we also talked a little offline about the enjoyment that we get. I love, as my job as a realtor, because I get so much enjoyment over helping other people, right? And that's the same thing for you. You're getting joy out of helping these people in your group and providing artists, something on an artistic note as well, whether it be also too, I got to give a shout out to your pet portraits that I saw over the holidays were amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, for you, it never appears to, you just seem to just be totally alive and loving everything that you do. and doing it with ease, if I may say so. So
Well, I'm glad that I'm actually, at least my children would disagree with you and the fact that I am always like easy breezy and so
yeah,
forth. But that's the thing. I mean, when we're in alignment
yes,
with our values, everything is easy.
yeah,
And so people are always like, "Oh, you're so lucky." Yada yada yada. Oh, you're so lucky you can work from home. You're so lucky, whatever. I'm like, it isn't. I mean, I am grateful,
yeah,
but we're not lucky.
right,
We did a lot of work to get us to this place. And that is, you have to, you have to design the life you want to live, and you have to keep the end in mind. So when you're saying, what is your goal? Like, this is my next,
yeah,
this is what it looks like,
right,
and these are all the steps that I need to make. And that is the crux of my coaching. Is I say I help women dream big and
yeah,
implement small, because it's overwhelming, right? Like, if anyone's like, you know I don't like this job, I know I want to do something different,
mm-hmm,
but that's so hard,
right,
that's so big, and so forth. It's like, but what can we do today? What
right,
is that one tiny thing we can do today,
yeah,
and then tomorrow,
right,
and then the next day, which is, how my community got its name, which is a daily practice. Is, what are we going to just do? What is the 10 minutes a day that we're going to do focused on ourselves that's going to get us one step closer to our goal?
So, Jennessa, as we are getting ready to wrap things up, I am going to ask you if you would be so kind to share maybe one thing that you would encourage anyone listening to this to do for themselves or for their day. I have to say, I've written down some of your notes about you do you or hold the mirror, so is there something that you would like to leave us with? And I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but
No,
yeah, what would you like to offer folks as far as something that they can perhaps do?
absolutely. So I think that everyone comes to me that's like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. But you do. You
Mm,
absolutely do. You're just not letting yourself hear it,
yeah,
or you're so bogged down in the how
yeah,
that you don't go to the what and where that is going.
right,
And so my 100%, every person that works with me, it's a requirement. What you need, if you do nothing else, is to do morning pages.
mhm,
And that is, you get a journal. It
yeah,
can be a composition notebook. It can be a series of envelope backs. It does not, perfectionism has no place. Well, has no place.
yeah.
We could have a whole talk, Marianne, on perfectionism.
I know.
So you get a journal, a pen, a pencil, and every single morning, as close to waking up as possible,
Yeah,
and you write 3 pages, and you put your pen down and you do not stop until you get to the end of 3 pages, and you just let it come out. And you start with, I don't know what I'm going to think about today. Or you say, what do I need today? And it just comes out. And it is 100%. And it's a hard one to get into, because you're like, it's daunting to look at 3 pages. That's why I say start with a smaller journal when you're
yeah, right,
starting.
right, yeah.
But and a lot of crap comes out first.
Mm,
Like, you have to get out the junky junk. It's kind of like when you've had your water turned off for a long time. You're not going to want to drink that
brown
first
water,
glass.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you got to let it run.
Mm,
But that is the way to tap into your intuition, and what you're wanting and needing comes out onto those pages. And everyone is astounded as to, and I didn't invent this. This comes from The Artist's Way, from Julia Cameron is the author. And it is just, um, it is, every woman should be doing morning pages.
yeah,
End of story. And that is, and you will get to the answer. And it doesn't come fast. I have several people in my community right now that are ready to go back to work. Like, I'm ready to go back to work. And they just want to know the
yeah,
answer. Like,
right,
what
right,
should I do, Jennessa? What do I need to do? Just so tell me what I need to do. And
right,
it doesn't happen that quickly. But it's I'll tell you, it's never going to happen if you don't focus on it. We only can make things happen on what we put our attention to. And that's in the other way. We can make a lot of worry because we put a focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of taking all of that time that we're doing negative self-talk and worry and putting that attention towards what's next? What do I really want? Then there you have it.
That is beautiful. Jennessa, I am so honored to have you here today. I have a confession to everyone. I was telling Jennessa earlier before I hit the record button that when I was reading some of the information that she had sent to me, I was feeling very intimidated because I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman does so much. So I'm a huge fan of yours. I just am so thankful that we've had this time together. I feel your energy and I just hope everybody else, I know they will. So I just want to say thank you so much. You're truly an inspiration and it's just been really fun to spend this time with you. I think we could keep talking.
Oh,
But
I could talk forever. So, and thank you so much for having me. This
oh,
is like,
welcome. You're welcome. It's
what a
fun.
fabulous way to spend an hour of my
I
day,
think
of my
so,
Tuesday.
too. I think so too. And again, I want to remind people I will have, I'll post this on YouTube as well as Instagram and Facebook, and I'll have links in there on how you can get in touch with Jennessa. So,
Awesome.
Jennessa, thank you so much. Take
Thank
care.
you.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
All
Bye.
right. Take care.